All right, hey guys, Peter Franson from Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central. This is the newsletter for this month. We're going to be talking about the month of April. I took 2 weeks to go off grid in April and was reminded that I need to approach going off grid differently. I, I think because normally when I go off grid, I am not answering any emails and I'm not uploading or posting, blog stuff or podcast stuff. But at some point along the way, I guess I felt like I needed to make sure there was content still there, that like maybe I would lose listeners, or now with the YouTube channel viewers or something like that, if content wasn't updated. I think that was something I just heard a long time ago, that you're supposed to, not have gaps in your content. In hindsight, that's probably more like larger gaps and more frequent gaps, and I don't have gaps very often at all in my content, except for maybe once or twice a year. Like once, always during Christmas, there's 1 or 2 weeks where there's no podcast. But but I've kind of put pressure on myself to, even when I go off grid, have a podcast episode for each week that I'm gone, and I think I need to not do that because what happened this time was I was prepping 3 weeks worth of podcasts in 1 week. I was podcasting, the podcast for that week, and then 2 podcasts for the following 2 weeks that I was planning to be off grid. And that resulted in me just losing a bunch of mixing time that I kind of had to make up, anyway, those 2 weeks that I was off grid. The whole point of being off grid for me is to dedicate extra time to mixing and the current audio project that I'm working on, And, but if I do all this content, if I still create all this content, even if I do it beforehand, that doesn't net me any, or maybe just a little bit, but it's not worth it. Is the end of it. So I think next time I don't want to go off grid for maybe as long of a stretch as at a time. Excuse me. Maybe just like every now and then go 1 week off grid and not create any content, not have a podcast, not do any YouTube videos and stuff like that, so that I actually do gain some extra time, because I didn't feel like I gained much. I was like, even like as I was getting ready to go off grid, I was like, I'm doing this wrong. So, and the fact of the matter is, compared to a couple years ago, going off grid is not as big a deal for me as it used to be, because my oldest son is now in first grade, so he's been in, all day school for close to 3 years, because, the preschool year, right just before he started kindergarten, was, just like an hour and a half less than a full day of elementary school. And then our youngest, last year was on 1 day a week preschool for just a few hours. Now he's this year 3 days a week for like 1 extra hour, and then next year he's going to be 5 days a week for, almost as long, just an hour and a half less than a full day of elementary school. So I've been getting back, as my boys have been getting older, more and more mixing time. So going off grid has been less necessary. So I may put an end to going off grid, but or at least not do it near as frequently. But if I do, I'm not going to do a podcast again. At least if I go off grid to mix. I mean, if I go off grid for a family vacation or something like that, then I don't know. All bets are off. So I'm on scene 24. And then and scene 24 is done except for music. And then scene 25, I've got all the dialogue mixed. I've been having to skip around a little bit, so scene 29 is finished, and pretty much. I just have a few things to add to it. I have a hard time telling if I'm on schedule or not, because I had the problem with the mixing board a month or 2 ago, and so I had to do things out of order. I will have a better idea probably about a month from now, when I catch up to those scenes that I did out of order, and I suddenly realize, oh, okay, I'm done with this, I can move on. Then I'll have a better idea of, okay, where am I at in my schedule? Right now, I'm still pretty confident about, at the very least, a 2015 release. I mean, it's always possible that it would bump into very early 2016, but I still think it's very possible I'm on track for a mid-October 2015 release. So I'm still feeling pretty good about things. I do get discouraged now and then, just because it's all kind of up in the air until a few weeks from now, when I kind of get back on my schedule a little bit. But anyway, that's all I have for you this month. Thanks for watching. Click.